Watson from Think Skills again with Kirsty Lewis from the Schools of Facilitation. Welcome back, Kirsty. Thank you for your time. Myself and also all the people watching and following Facilitation Done Right, we would like to know a bit more about your experience of blended and social learning. What works, what does not works, and maybe tell us a little bit how that has developed for you in the past.
Okay, so let's just start with what does blended learning mean to me. So blended learning would be using multiple formats to bring learning to life for the learner, and that would be everything from pre-thinking, a workshop, webinars, coaching, reading, self-learning. It could be the use of a personal learning network. So no longer do we just talk about running a workshop or an event. Well, I don't anyway, when I'm talking to my corporates and even to practitioners. I think we now know there are other ways that people like to learn and have a preference to learn, and therefore I really think it's up to us as those people who bring different learning to life for the corporates to be suggesting and recommending different ways of creating learning journeys to our clients. So for me, what I often do is I would always put what I call the gold standard idea to the client, and that would include either interviews and setup calls with the participants. There may be an event, which could be a half day, a 1 day, a 2 day, face to face. It might have an element of virtual learning instead. But there will be a journey, and then there's always, once there's been the injection of learning, there has to be the reinforcement and the embedding piece that comes. And personally, I don't think that's my responsibility as the facilitator. I think that should sit in the business that is doing the learning. And this is my personal experience, that when line managers get involved with the embedding of learning and coach their employees, it lands. The learning comes to life more. And I was brought up, my formative years of work in a corporate, Guinness and Diageo, and from 2000, that was just the way it was. My line manager, my director, my grandfather role, great-grandfather role, they were my teachers. So they were my coaches, they were my mentors. So I'm very much of a belief that an employer has a responsibility to their learners. What we can do though, as the external energy, that's how I see the facilitators and the trainers, we can be sharing different ways to embed that learning, whether that's through coaching, whether that's through showing them how to set up personal learning networks, how to use their internal systems to create communities, to continue conversations. Sometimes we need to just keep giving them a little shove and a little push and show them different ways of working that they might not be thinking about.
Thank you very much. I really like this expression, external energy, Kirsty. I think it's fabulous. In terms of the corporate landscape in the UK, do you think it is now broadly used and accepted that the line manager, the whole business is behind the employees taking the development, or is still something that only leading organizations are developing?
No, I think it's not just the UK. There's definitely research. There's a great lady, I think her name's Emma Webber, from Australia, and she's done research on the involvement of line managers and embedding learning. And so she researched in Australia, in America, in the UK, and across Europe. Some countries are better at it than others, but I think it's probably down to the corporation themselves and how they view learning and where they place the energy and the emphasis into learning. So there are companies now that are just starting the idea that I keep hearing the phrase leaders as teachers, where the leaders are stepping up and facilitating and running workshops and bringing to life the learning and the capabilities that these companies have. And there's other companies who've been doing it for years. So I think it just depends on the leadership that sits in those companies and what's important to them, and the culture they're looking to create in those corporations.
So quite a contrasted views, and I'm sure between the large blue chip company and the medium company, there's probably quite a gap in terms of where they are at. But for you, Kirsty, and also for trainers and facilitators watching us, how did you get about? I mean, it's so many different skills that you need to acquire. You need to be able to create content. You need to be able to create videos. You need to be able to communicate on communities. How did you get about to raise to that level? Because you said you're coming from a face-to-face background in our previous session. So how did you develop? How did you acquire what you needed to learn, to develop standards of learning?
I am self-taught, so I'm pretty up for experimenting and playing, and I am not the type of learner who will read a book, do everything by the book, and follow the rules. So in terms of, let's take webinars, for example, I just decided I'd have a go, and I did reach out to one person, Jo Cook, who's part of this story. So I spoke to Jo Cook and I asked her advice. And one of her bits of advice was, you just got to have a go. So I just set up a couple of webinars last September and put it out to my community, and we just started to play. As Jo would say, we riffed. And it was good fun. And I am the first to talk to the group and say, hey, look, I'm new at this. So I will play around with the technology. I'd say the mistakes I made maybe is in buying into a package for a year on a tool that might not be quite what I wanted. So I've got GoToWebinar. It's okay. It's got some functionality that's missing for me, I now realise. But I only realised that functionality was missing when I started to use it. But that's generally my style. So self-taught. So on webinars, and just getting involved with the community and finding other people like your good self. You and I just sat next to each other at an L&D co-work and just talked. And that's very typical of me. So I will seek out the experts. I will say quite clearly what I'm really good at and where I need support and help. I think also to learn, you need to be quite curious and open-minded. And I think if we can't exemplify that as facilitators and trainers, how are we expecting our learners to follow suit? So yeah, so just having a go, not mind making a fool of myself and just doing it. In terms of other platforms that I use, so I've used Slack before to have a community conversation, and again I just downloaded it and said, hey, who wants to come and play? And we've started to play with that. I'm also part of a personal learning network, a PLN, on WhatsApp. So again, just saw an advert on LinkedIn and just said, yes, I'm curious. That's hosted by Danny Seals. So that's a really great way of talking to my peer group and keep chatting. So I didn't have to learn how to use WhatsApp. It's just learning how to filter the chat that comes on a daily basis and what's important to me, where I place my energy. LinkedIn, again, trial and error and noticing what people want. There are some people out there who just get into all the detail of LinkedIn. They understand the algorithms and they max out how it works. I think you need to just choose the platform that works best for you. I'm having a lot of fun on Instagram at the moment, if I'm really honest. So if any of you are Instagram people search School of Facilitation. So I find that as a really great format for me, because I quite like taking the photographs and just talking, like someone calls it micro-blogging, and I quite like making the Instagram stories. So as I'm setting up a workshop, I will film what I'm doing in the room so people can see. And I think sometimes that's helpful for other people to get some inspiration and some ideas on how they can be setting up their meeting rooms, or if I'm designing, I'll share that, or I'll share that my exasperations of the day and my frustrations, or things I'm happy about.
Well, this is fascinating, Kirsty. Thank you. And just one last question on that topic is, time is always an issue for trainers and facilitators. We're all self-employed, and how did you find the time to actually self-learn? Did you make the conscious choice, or did you just happen to create sometimes for learning at night, in the middle of the night, or are you someone who
Oh,
doesn't need
no,
to
I need
sleep
8 hours
basically?
plus sleep. It's been a long, it's not been something I've done automatically in the last 2 or 3 months. So it's been an ongoing journey. So, for example, LinkedIn, I've been on LinkedIn since 2007. So I've just grown with that and played with that as it's happened. Um, Again, virtual learning and working on webinars, that's been a journey of the last year, and doing it consistently. That's one thing I've always learned. If you want to learn to do something, you've got to make a rhythm out of it. However uncomfortable that rhythm is. I've done a bit of reading and I just talk to people. So the answer is I still sleep many, many hours, but I haven't put any extra effort in, maybe. I've just added it into my daily life.
Well, thank you very much for sharing, Kirsty. It was fantastic and very informative. And in our third and last session coming up very soon, we will look at how it works for trainers and facilitators in the corporate world to use blended learning, and we're looking at some practical things like fees. Thank you.
My pleasure.